All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the November 12th Local Planning Agency meeting. If you would please, Jordan, call the roll.
Chair Strom,
Here.
Vice Chair Roberts,
Here.
Board Member Massing,
Vice Chair.
Board Member Mathers,
Yes.
Board Member De La Vega, Board Member Herbach,
Yes. Board
Board Member Rich.
If everybody would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We need approval of the minutes for the July 16th, August 20th, and October 8th minutes. Do we have a motion to approve?
I had a correction on the July 16th minutes. So on the July 16th minutes, I know that food trucks was item number 4, and then the electric vehicle was item number 5. So if you can fix that and put it back the other way. There is something that says on page 7 of 156 that Chair Strom announced staff has removed item number 4, food truck ordinance. But then we have an item number 4 for electric vehicles. So if you can change the number on the electric vehicles to 5 and right above the 5, put in that line about Chair Strom dumped the other thing. And I move approval of that with that change.
Okay, great. And approval of all the minutes?
Sure.
We have a second.
Second.
A motion and a second, please call the roll.
Vice Chair Roberts,
Yes.
Board Member Massing. Oh, sorry. Board Member Herbach,
Yes.
Chair Strom,
Yes.
and Board Member Mathers.
Yes.
Great. Do we have any comments from the public on any non-agenda items? Seeing none, do we have any comments from board members? Okay, seeing none, we're going to get to, we have an action item, meeting decorum. Is that Mary?
I believe there was a public comment. Was your public comment for general public comment? I think there was a public comment card.
Okay, I have a public comment card. I think, is this an agenda item? It says on here it's number 2, the North Stewart.
Yeah, it is and it isn't.
Okay, ma'am, if you want to come up and say your name and go ahead and let us know what you have.
Yvette Southard, and I live in North Stewart. And I don't know if it is or isn't, but why I'm at the meeting is because I saw the sign on Baker Road. And I was wondering what that is going to develop into. Stewart is a nice, beautiful little town. It's just a pleasure to live here. Everyone that I've worked with and talked to it's just wonderful. But I'm getting a little worried. I live in North Stewart, which is very tiny. Okay, let's just say that side of the bridge. All right, that's North Stewart. And in the past year, we have an assisted living built at the bottom of the bridge, a doctor's office, a new hotel, a marijuana clinic, a condo with a store in front of it being developed alongside North Stewart Baptist Church, another enormous condo being built across from Family Church. And I just wondered, how do you give out permits for that much development in a square mile? It just blows my mind.
And I will
Are we
just,
trying to make North Stewart Port St. Lucie?
I'll just address that in that is our agenda item number 3. It's an annexation of 4 properties. The city's going to annex those and put them into conservation. So
The ones on Baker?
the ones on Baker Road,
Nothing's going to be built there.
that's what the request is for the
Now,
annexation.
further
this
down
evening.
on Baker where they're already developing, that's not Stewart, correct?
Some of that is the
And that's gonna be-
Avonlea property.
And that's going to be a condo?
There's a couple projects out on Avonlea.
But how do we get away with having assisted living, 2 big condos, a marijuana clinic, a hotel, all within 1 square mile. What are you trying to do to North Stewart?
Well,
And how do
they've
how do
all been
these-
through the development process.
How do these permits, I mean, 1 square mile, you have 2 large condo complexes, and assisted living. It just, are schools going to be able to accommodate all those people in that large condo going up?
So
across-
ma'am, in the development review process, all of that is analyzed. So if you're concerned about continued development, I'd ask that you get involved and attend some of these meetings as the projects come forward,
Mr. Chair,
please.
if I could. I'd like to suggest, there, unbeknownst to you perhaps, there are maps that kind of designate what zoning is and what could happen. And I'd like to suggest perhaps that you come in and make an appointment and talk to the development department with staff, and they can kind of explain that whole thing to you
And who would I
and
talk
explain the
to?
process. So that would be Kev Freeman.
Kevin?
Kev, is his name Kevin or just Kev? It is, there he is, right there behind you. He was, I didn't see him. But if you came in and spoke with him, he could probably answer a lot of your questions and be able to take care of things for you. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We have the action item on meeting decorum.
Yes. Let me get my presentation up. Good evening. My name is Mary Kindle. I'm the city clerk for the city of Stewart. I've met most of you. Some of you may not know me, but I was asked to do a meeting decorum presentation. And this is basically a presentation on how to handle meeting disruptions. So we're going to talk about this because we're doing this presentation for all of our boards. Because of our meetings being open to the public, we're going to talk mainly about public comment. We offer public comment at pretty much all of our public meetings. The in-person, we're going to cover in-person meetings, and then the option via Zoom telecommunications. We're going to go over a few definitions just very briefly, but I wanted to point out to me the most important one, because this entire presentation is based on this particular definition. I don't normally read particularly from the entire slide, but I feel like this one is most important. Disruptive conduct includes addressing the commission or board without first being recognized, not addressing the subject before the board, repetitiously addressing the same subject, shouting at or threatening the members of the commission or board in a manner which makes it difficult or impossible to maintain decorum, or which places the members of the board in fear for their lives or safety of other persons in attendance of the meeting, failing to relinquish the podium when requested to do so, or otherwise preventing the meeting from continuing in an orderly manner. That's mainly the focus of this presentation. Another definition that's important to know is sergeant at arms. This is basically the official whose duty it is to maintain order and security in a public meeting. Usually at our commission meetings, we have our police chief or another officer in the room. Willful disruption. Willful disruption is any disruption that is persistent. If you have someone who is in the audience yelling out to try and voice their opinion, or somebody who comes up during public comment and continues to verbalize their opinion even after they've been asked to thank you very much, and we've heard what you have to say. Civility. Civility is something that we just ask everyone to practice here at City Hall, and it is commented about and mentioned on our agendas. It is more than merely being polite. It is just it is a way that we can hear each other and express ourselves in a way that is fair to all. This is just a little humor here. Okay, balancing the First Amendment at public meetings. This is always interesting because, of course, with public comment, any citizen has the right to come up and express their views, their opinions, and we cannot silence them based on their viewpoint. During public meetings, public comment gives members of the community an opportunity to share their viewpoints and make a statement. But we must allow them this right uninterrupted, but also to a degree, and we'll get into that. Public comment and motions. The city of Stuart follows the Roberts Rules of Order. And with that, in motions, when a member of the board makes a motion and it's seconded, after that, public comment is offered. Then prior to that, at times, the chair can make the decision to ask for public comment from the audience if they feel it's necessary to help them make a decision prior to making a motion. But there are pros and cons to that. One of the things is, like I said, it can offer input prior to making the motion. It helps the board out if they are kind of torn between how to make the motion or which way to go on an item. But it can prolong the meetings, increase frustration amongst the members of the public because they're asked to only speak once. Technically, in the Roberts Rules of Orders and in parliamentary procedures, public comment on an item should not be made more than once by the same person. So, public comment guidelines. We need to be consistent. We now offer 3 minutes instead of 5 minutes according to our new adopted amendments. In that 3 minutes, if we don't like what somebody is necessarily saying, we cannot offer them 2 minutes. We cannot shut them down less than the 3 minutes. But we cannot allow them longer than the 3 minutes just because we like what they're saying. So we should remain consistent. When the bell or the timer goes off, we appreciate your comment. Thank you very much. And that should be the end of public comment. We do have comment cards to be filled out by those members of the public that are to make public comment. That helps us as the city to record who made the comment. It's just good record keeping. It helps the chair to call out who is coming up. We ask that people, when they come forward, they state their name and their address for the record. If they don't want to give their full address, that's fine, but at least state maybe their street so that we know that they're City of Stuart residents or not. Comments only. We ask that this is not a time for questions and answer exchange. This is not a time for debate. I was just going to read off section 2.50 of the code in the city's ordinances that was recently amended. It says this time for receipt of public comment is not debate. The chairman or commissioners will not enter into dialogue with citizens. Questions from the commissioners will not be for clarification purposes, or will be for clarification purposes only. Public comment will not be used as a time for problem solving or reaching or reacting. I'm sorry, my eyesight is not what it used to be, and I'm sitting here in the dark. For problem solving or reacting to comments made, but rather for hearing the citizens for informational purposes only. Okay. So now we're going to talk briefly about how to handle the meeting disruptions for meetings in person. So if you have a disruption where somebody is either yelling out in person or coming up to the podium and they are being disruptive, we just ask you to keep your cool, stop the meeting if need be, calling a brief recess. It'll give you time to gather your thoughts. And then we ask when you come back and the recess is over, address the situation with the board and the audience, apologize for the disruption or the offensiveness. We don't take that as it being the fault of the city or the board, of course. It's just recognizing that the disruption happened and apologizing and acknowledging it. If bullying, intimidation, or threatening action occurs, we just ask that you politely remind the person of our civility policy and ask that they keep their comments till the end of the meeting. Sergeant of Arms may escort the person out, that is up to the chair or the sergeant of arms himself. If it escalates, you can call authorities or suspend the meeting even. And of course, last resort to call 911 if need be. This is a diagram that kind of is an illustration of various behaviors and behaviors to actions. And I just thought it was a nice example of different risk levels and then actions to be taken if it were to escalate to that point. Hopefully we never get to this point, but different safety precautions. And, you know, most people know when to take it to that level, but thank goodness we've never had anything like that. But in the event that uncivil behavior takes place, this diagram is kind of a nice source for general practice. And now Zoom meetings. Because we've offered Zoom, it kind of, it takes us to a different level. Basically, it's the same thing. We want you to practice the same measures as in person. Keep your cool, stop the meeting if something happens, call a recess, same thing. It gives you a chance to kind of gather your thoughts. Following the recess, you know, same thing, gather back and apologize for the disruption. Reminding the audience and everyone on Zoom that these meetings are open government and people are not restricted from logging into the meeting via Zoom. And then there's just kind of a suggested comment of the way you can kind of mention it down there as far as the apology. So we're just kind of trying to remind everyone, the number one thing is to be prepared. A meeting disruption can happen at any time, whether it be via Zoom or in person. So it has happened here in the city of Stuart already, and we have taken additional precautions to make sure it doesn't happen again, but anything can happen. So that with Zoom telecommunications, we're happy to offer it. It offers increased transparency, but with this additional technology comes additional risk for meeting disruptions. So being prepared and knowing how to handle those disruptions will make the meeting run smoothly and more efficiently. So that concludes my presentation. And if you have any questions, please let me know.
Thanks, Mary.
You're welcome.
Our next item is ordinance, the Hidden Key RPUD rezoning, ordinance number 2457, 2020, an ordinance of the city of Stuart, the city commission of the city of Stuart rezoning the 1.36 acre parcel from residential multifamily office R3 to residential PUD. And first I would ask, do any board members have any ex parte communication to disclose?
No, sir.
Seeing none. All those giving testimony, please stand, raise your right hand and be sworn in. Do we have somebody to swear them in? Oh, Mike was here.
Do you want me to go?
Rick Creech.
Rick Creech.
Yeah.
Do you, Rick Creech, swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor.
Good staff. Yeah, good people.
Stephen, Mayor?
Yes.
And Kev Freeman. And Kev Freeman. Do you swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Great, thank you. We'll now hear from the staff report, please.
Thank you. Steve Mayer for the record, Development Department. Ordinance number 2457, 2020 is an ordinance for rezoning of 1.36 acre parcel from residential multifamily office R3 to residential plan unit development RPUD. And the location of the property is, it doesn't have an address, it's a vacant infill parcel, as you can see on the map display. It is south of the Estates of Stuart. It is north of Arc of Martin County. It is west of Unity Church here and east of the Cantor Trust offices. This is Cantor Highway located to the west of the site. And there's a road, there's a private easement road that accesses this parcel. It is 1.36 acres, as I mentioned, in vacant. The future land use of the property is office residential, and that is not requested to be changed. And the surrounding, just to note, the surrounding properties, most of those are office residential in the brown. There is commercial land uses adjacent to and nearby to the south and east. The zoning district is R3. Similarly, the most of the adjacent uses are also R3. And the request is to change that to that RPUD, which is a brown in color. As you can see, some of these on Central Parkway are also RPUDs. Now, the waiver request, the applicant is requesting 2 waivers within their PUD application. It is a site plan for 28 apartments, 2-story unit, 2-story product. One of them is the request for density, additional density. That is typical for PUD. It's allowed up to 15 units acre for standard RPUD, and then it could have up to 30 by allowance by vote of the city commission. The applicant is requesting 28 units or 20.6 units per acre. So that's approximately about 5 units more than the 15 unit per acre. The second is from section 60406, which is land use transitions and buffers. The buffer requirement for 2-story multifamily adjacent to another multifamily is 30 feet because of being 2 feet. The applicant is requesting 2 stories, sorry. The applicant is requesting a 15-foot wide landscape buffer along those property lines, whereas they're typically abutting would require that. Because we're looking at those buffer requirements, I wanted to show a site aerial so you can see the property in comparison to these uses. As mentioned, this would be the front of the property. So the transitional buffer is a 10-foot landscape, which the applicant is providing. Then you would have the sides here and here, which are actually for the adjacent to non-residential uses. So those transitions and also this area here and this area here actually has quite a bit of a buffer already inherent in their existing uses. And then you would have the rear of the property, and the transition there is between a 2-story residential multifamily product and another 2-story residential product. So they'd be very similar in use, but the code does require 30 feet. The applicant, the adjacent uses you can see here does have a substantial, I believe it to be 30 or 35 foot distance between where the building is and the property line. So the site plan, again, I wanted to just highlight where one of the waiver requests is this buffer right there. This is the 28 units in a 2-story configuration. The applicant is here with their agent. Mr. Creech will present their site plan and their landscape plan also to you. Staff has analyzed both of those and have not found any other deviations of the code except for the 2 that I mentioned regarding density and the buffer. They will also present the elevations. The elevations do meet the requirements of the code as well. And staff does recommend approval of the ordinance and forwarding the City Commission for first reading November 23rd. That ends the staff presentation. I'm happy to take questions after the applicant presents.
Okay, applicant?
Good evening, Chairman Strom and fellow board meetings. I'm Rick Creech, Creech Engineers, representing the applicant today. Along with me is our landscape architect, Eileen Genta, and the applicant himself, Jerry Lemasters. So really appreciate the opportunity to present today. I think staff did an excellent job of giving you the basics and the facts. Try to be brief. We've got, I think, a very good site plan. We show 4 electric car stations. We also show initially a turnaround down there for the emergency vehicles that doesn't exist today. Almost that behaving as a cul-de-sac. That was one of the items that came up as part of the fire marshal, additional fire hydrants down there. We were also looking at bike racks that are going to be associated with it and trying to create a more pedestrian scale for these offices, residential component in that area. For the record, I have also an affidavit showing that we provided the notifications. I'll give to the clerk. I'll give it to her. So that the adjacent property owners were notified of the public hearing. You know, we also have various renderings, just to give you some flavor and some aspect of what Mr. Masters is proposing as far as the multifamily. Quite a bit of landscaping, mostly native vegetation. We have bioswales in the rear and of the sides for stormwater attenuation. Plan on using the existing water and sewer that's available to the west of our site. So I think it'll be quite an enhancement to the area, considering that what's on there now is mostly exotics and some scattered oak trees. With that, we appreciate your, entertaining staff's recommendation this evening and, ask that you approve the project this evening.
Thanks, Mr. Creech. Do we have any comments, questions from board members? Mike, go ahead.
Just for clarification, and I have some questions. On the initial page, it says it's 1,281 square foot, 3-bedroom apartments. And on the blueprints, it shows 2-bedroom apartments. That's what it seems like. So are they 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom?
If we can go back to the footprint,
The one that was on my presentation?
yeah, in your presentation. Just so I'm clear. So, currently, yeah, I believe we show, 2 bedrooms, I believe, Jeremy. So, but there's an opportunity, potentially to go to 3 bedrooms if they change the floor plan. Right now, the floor plan is in flux. It's just a preliminary floor plan. But, as the floor plan shows now, it's 2 bedroom. So that was a
2-bedroom.
typo, yeah.
Okay. It says 3, which I'm not arguing with,
Yeah.
but I'm just wondering what impact that has on the, say, the school system. In other words, I don't know if there's a difference between 25 2-bedrooms compared to 25 3-bedrooms. And the second part of that is with the traffic study, it says in here, code number 220. I don't know what that means, from the Institute of Traffic Engineers. So are they calculating trips per day on a basis of a 3-bedroom apartment or a 2-bedroom apartment?
But,
Does it matter?
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. The multifamily unit, is
Okay.
the multifamily unit, especially for the school board. In my experience, they calculate the impact fee based on the actual unit
Okay.
itself. As far as the traffic goes, traditionally it's based on a square footage of the unit. If the unit gets bigger and bigger and bigger, then obviously in more and more bedrooms, then yes, it'll kick that up. But right now, it's a very simple calculation from the traffic statement as to a multifamily unit per ITE, Traffic Institute.
Another question I have is, what impact will that have on a school bus stop? In other words, where are the children that live there going to get on the school bus?
Good question. Candidly, I don't know. Most likely at Canner Highway like they do at the adjacent multifamily.
I would think, in my opinion, none of this is a big deal,
Mhm.
but it needs to be addressed. I think we need to know where a school bus would stop, turn around, or stand out on Canner Highway. I would like to check the numbers on the difference between, unless it's based on square footage, a 2-bedroom and a 3-bedroom. And then I have a comment for our board here. There is an ex officio, Garrett Grabowski, and as I remember years back, he was put on because he would represent the schools as far as what the density is, and he hasn't been here for years. Why do we have him on the board if he's not at a meeting like this to say, this is what we need to do, this is where a school bus could be? The last question I have is, it says that you're going to put up a 6-foot wall. What's the define wall? Is it concrete masonry,
At this time, it's concrete masonry as I show
Okay.
in the detail.
concrete block?
Concrete
Stucco.
block, masonry, and then on the front is a decorative, wrought iron fence.
When you said at this time, is it going to be that it's what it's going to be, definitely?
That's what it's going to be. That's what it's shown on the
It's
site
definitely
plan.
going to be a
Mhm.
concrete block wall, 6-foot high?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah, but it may, and I'll clarify that. There are also opportunities to have, prefab concrete walls that can be constructed.
but it's going to be
On-site.
masonry or concrete construction, 6-foot
correct.
high?
That's
Okay.
correct.
I have no more.
Thanks, Mike. Bill?
I don't know if I got any questions, Rick. I think you
Good to see you.
handled it.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I haven't seen you in
Yeah.
years, right?
Came out of retirement.
I figured that. No, I think the only question I have for staff is, are we going to require a plat for this RPUD?
If these are rental, if they're rental, no. These are rental units, correct?
That's it.
So-
That's the interest. Yes.
So no, we wouldn't require a plat unless they were subdividing the property.
Okay, 'cause we've actually platted single, parcels before. I didn't know if this was that, but this one here, we're going to stay away from platting, right? Okay. I don't think, you still got finals you got to do, so,
Correct.
you'll have to worry about those, but, yeah, I don't see anything, that I can think of at this point, Rick, that would, you got all the burden to go to the next stage.
That's correct.
Thanks, Bill. Lee?
Sure, thanks, Ryan. Okay, so we've established that these are going to be rental units. Where's the mail delivery going to be?
The mail delivery, where I have it proposed right now, is down by the dumpster, where the bike rack is at.
So is that shown on the site plan or not?
I thought I had shown it on the site plan, but in reviewing it earlier today, I didn't show a mail delivery area, but that was where it was anticipated.
So down there by the dumpster, you have a fire hydrant, a dumpster, a bike rack, and also
The mail delivery.
mail will be there too?
Yes, because that's a concrete kind of patio area that, for the bike rack and the mail delivery. And
Okay,
I figured it'd be a common place to gather for mail delivery. Yes, it's a big box. Yeah.
okay. When staff gave their presentation, they talked about a 15-foot rear setback in the back and that being landscaped. And can you go back to the one of the first the first aerial that you gave us that showed the building to the closer to Cantor, that one? So it appears, when I look at the, whatever this one is, that shows part of that building and part of the parking lot, it appears for that other building, it appears that that parking lot is twice as far away from that back lot line as this building would be.
Okay.
So which would mean that so in my head, that means that the existing building, that existing building that we're seeing right there on the left-hand side,
This one.
over there, is 30 feet from that line. And what you're proposing to do would be 15 feet, which would be cutting that in half. Which makes sense because you're asking for 15 feet, so that makes sense. I'm a little bit confused because if you're talking about that being a bioswale, you're talking about it being a bioswale, and that's what's on the drawings, and staff is talking about it being heavily landscaped to
Yeah.
create a buffer. So is a bioswale heavily landscaped?
It is landscaped, yes. And it would also.
I can't hear you. I'm sorry, Steve.
Sorry. Yes, a bioswale would be landscaped. That's what the difference between just a normal swale and a bioswale is, that it does have landscaping in it that is tolerant of the water.
Right. So then if you go to the pictures that we had that showed the thing that showed it pretty, let me see where it was. Keep going. It was green.
Talking about the renderings?
Yeah.
Yes.
It didn't really show, I mean, it showed like low landscaping because it was really, I mean, I look at a bioswale pretty much like as a ditch. As a ditch that's going to gather water in a rainy period. So it's not going to really support a buffer, correct, Kev?
I think the landscape architect is here.
Somebody's gonna have to swear her and then.
Yep.
Got somebody's,
A cheat sheet.
What's that?
she's got a
Given
cheat sheet to do some.
sheet
Oh,
if I
great.
need to. The bios.
Ma'am, she's going to swear
I'll have
you
to
in so you
swear
can
you
give
in,
testimony.
I'm sorry. Okay, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Let the record reflect that you have testified and affirmatively. Can you please state your name?
Eileen Johnson.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, the vegetation that's been selected for the bioswale is mainly native and it is made for that. I mean, it's made to withstand water, it's made to withstand, variations of water, dry spells versus, heavy rains. And you know, and it is kind of a ditch, you know, I guess you'd say, you know, it's definitely has a depression in it. And the water will be draining into that area. We have cypress.
So when I'm looking, it's kind of hard to see because I can't see as well, but you have the landscape plan. Can you blow up the landscape plan on there? Can you make it bigger, please?
I have to stop sharing.
We can,
Because I'm looking in your bioswale and trying to see.
let me do.
Things like gamma grasses.
Yeah,
mutant
I'm not,
grass.
in the landscape plan, I'm not seeing a whole lot in the bioswale. I see the palms out in the front. I see the stuff that's on the left and on the right.
Just share that
Anything
now.
that's on the, I guess, the bottom of the bioswale is mainly
And I'll
things
share
like
it.
the gamma grass, because that can take the wet.
What about
The other stuff on the slopes is really, it's all water tolerant. Every single thing that is planted around
this
or
is
in
right
that swale is water tolerant.
what about buffer?
Right, so I don't really
And all the
consider that.
trees that are on there can
There you go.
withstand, the ones that are on the top can withstand some, the ones that are kind
Where
of
is it?
worse inside, like the cypress, that can take standing water.
Delete.
You know, if you look over at, by the Indians, our new bridge there by,
Okay, now.
And that's fine. How tall are the trees gonna get eventually?
30 feet.
Jason?
That's not a wall there, that's a fence there.
That's a wall.
Wall.
There's-
Concrete
On the
walls.
plan, it says,
No,
I
there's
saw
a,
a wall fence, but it's a wall.
there's a wall on 3 sides, and then there's the fencing on the front. Shorter fence along the front edge.
on this one, it says fence.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
6-foot high perimeter fence, but that's going to become a wall?
Yes, it's gonna be a wall, because that's what's on the detail. That's what I call out on the site plan.
Okay,
That needs to change.
that needs to change then right there too?
Correct.
Come out on the site plan.
Mhm.
On the site plan.
It's on a
it says
landscape plan as a wall. On the site plan, that one area has a fence.
Okay.
I also noticed that I didn't find the third bedroom. I just think it's really tight. I just think I think 28 units is just at 1281 a unit. I do appreciate that there's no back door. So, and I can appreciate that the people who are going to live there don't really need a yard. I can understand all of that. But I just think that I can't wrap my head around having a bioswale that's going to collect water and also be calling that 15 feet a buffer at the same time. I think the reality is you're counting on the buffer to being the estate's buffer, you know, their buffer on their side. And on your side, you're really going to have a bioswale to collect water that's going to gather, which you need to do. I mean, obviously, you don't want your water running off to somewhere else. But I don't see that 15 foot as being able to handle both functions at the same time. And when I'm looking at that, there's the landscape plan. I don't see a whole lot of planting to be creating what I would consider to be a buffer. When I look on the east or the left and the right side, those two pieces do look like they have buffers. And I almost feel like those pieces don't really need as much. You know, I mean, if you're really doing buffering, I would think that you would try to do it all the way around it. But in looking at it, I appreciate the buffer on the left. I appreciate the buffer on the right. But when I look at the back of the building, I feel like there's no buffer on the back of the building.
Commissioner, if we could, I mean, I haven't really done the final engineering on it yet. You know, I've just shown it in a conceptual basis. I'd be more than happy to make that a 100% buffer. I believe I got more than enough stormwater on site. So,
And I don't know whether I mean, so if you can create the buffer and come up with your stormwater retention some other way, I think that would be a way of solving that.
You mind, Leah?
No, go ahead.
Question for you. You putting a lot of underground?
yeah, I've got significant amounts of exfiltration trench up front.
Okay. Were you going to use that for nitrates, phosphates?
I was using actually the other ones for essentially just for, you know, spreading it around a little bit.
Okay,
instead of
but
having
this is
to recon-
going to be self-certification, right?
Yes,
Okay. Otherwise, they're going to hit you with the nitrates and
Right,
phosphates
exactly.
today. So you better not get rid of that bioswale.
I've
Or at
got,
least do something that it's, you know,
yeah, we've got some of it on the sides. I can expand those.
Okay,
So that's,
all right.
it's flexibility as far as that.
Yeah, I just
I
want to
was
explain.
looking
Yeah.
at getting the water around. the
Okay, if
site.
you can get rid of it and, you know,
Yeah.
that's fine. But if they can't, sometimes, Lee, the
Yeah, I know.
agencies better have it for, you know,
Yeah.
pollution reduction and all that.
Yeah.
I feel confident on this site plan with my preliminary calculations, I can eliminate the bias.
And
That's your problem.
Are you using pervious
Yes, ma'am.
concrete? So that, I mean, that, I think that helps with
That
some
helps
of your
quite a bit
thing.
too.
But I'm just saying that, you know, when you look at the size on your left and right, you've got almost twice as much between the building and the lot line. So it would just make more, if you're really trying to provide a buffer, is to really kind of do a
I'm more
buffer.
than open, Council,
Is that-
to take that away and provide a much more dense, vegetated buffer.
I don't profess to be a traffic engineer, but of course I read their report. And I think that, and I'm assuming that staff has looked at it as well and is okay with it. It was a little bit, let me find it. It was a little bit confusing to me of why they thought, I think it was, you're going to have 28, let's call them families living there, right? And we've got, we think the AM hour peak trip is going to be a total of 14, 3 in and 11 out.
That's only within a certain, time period. It's not the entire peak out, peak 2 hours. I believe that talks only specifically to one peak hour. Is that correct? I don't have it in front of me. but-
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
It just seemed like it was, and I don't profess to be a traffic person, but, and I know that Susan did it and she's,
Yeah.
but I don't know whether,
And so a
Um,
lot of times it transfers over a couple hours. So that's just that one. And that's how basically the city takes it and looks at it from average daily trips and a peak hour. What's the impact at that peak hour? That's why that's so limited.
Mhm.
And I'm sure there's gonna be more trips during that 2 to 3 hour period.
and then along the access road that comes in, is there a sidewalk that runs that whole length of the access road or not?
Not today, no.
So my concern is going back to the school buses, I would imagine that there is a school bus stop over in front of the estates. That's what I'm imagining. I don't really know, but that's where I would think it would be. So I would imagine that children who live here, and I would think if you had a 3-bedroom, you were going to at least get a couple kids that are going to be living there. I would imagine that in order for them to get to the bus stop, they're going to have to walk along that access road out to Canner and then be on the sidewalk at Canner, turn right and go on the sidewalk at Canner up to the estate. But I'm a little bit concerned, and I guess that's a staff question, because if they have the property that's in front of them, right? But yet you have to walk along the roadway that belongs to an office building with people coming in and out, et cetera. How we're handling pedestrian connectivity.
They were using a striped crosswalk to get to the other side of where the sidewalk does exist.
So there's a sidewalk on the ARC side of the property,
Correct.
all the way out to Canner?
I would need to check on that. It doesn't appear to be all the way to Canner, no. No, it
No,
doesn't-
not all the way to Canner.
It does not appear to be all the way to Canner, no.
So what do we do about that?
Well, it would be the ARC site. I wouldn't know what we could force the ARC to do.
No, and
mean,
the only thing I'm concerned with is as we approve something that's,
I mean,
eventually it'll fall on the hands of the city. I mean, that's where it'll end up at. So you guys will take care of your own property, but if we don't have any connectivity to get pedestrians back and forth, then at some point, somebody's going to be coming to the city saying, you guys need to do something. And then in your capital plan, you're going to have to come up with a sidewalk and you're going to have to,
Chairman
et cetera,
Strong, if I could, just 1 second, I was talking to the applicant, I can investigate with staff, the bus, because that's why we put the secondary access in there, was so that emergency vehicles could make a turn. I can investigate through Garrett or somebody over at the school district to identify a bus stop in that neighborhood. 28 units is a significant amount of units and it's supposedly for, children and stuff. So if not, then I know there's a 30-foot easement, access easement going there. I'm sure that I could figure out a way to get a sidewalk to Canner Highway. So I have 2 options with respect to the site plan. one within the 30-foot access easement, cutting the pavement down and providing a sidewalk with a non-mountable curb, or, going to the school district and getting them to identify a bus stop on site.
Okay,
That's a logistics issue that I really had not even thought about, is
okay,
trying to get to the sidewalk across the street from a site planning standpoint.
okay.
Your point about the school buses.
So we're going to call that pedestrian connectivity,
Connectivity, correct.
to Canner, right?
Right. Mhm.
And the other way that you might be able to, and I don't know whether the estates would be interested, but you might be able to work a deal with the estates where there's
An
a
internal,
path or an internal thing that gets them back that way,
that's a very good idea.
or even over to Unity,
Mhm.
I mean, but something along those lines you might be able to do.
No,
Because otherwise, I just think it's really tight without,
no, I agree with you. It's like, so, yeah, I'll agree right now to find some pedestrian connectivity to get to Canner Highway, or provide that bus loop. So
okay, I think that, and then the last thing,
I think I can do that because of the
Okay.
30 feet right of way.
and the last thing is, I think that if we're talking about this being 3 bedrooms, we need to be sure that the drawings all show 3 bedrooms instead of showing. So if we're not going to talk about 3 bedrooms and we're going to do 2 bedroom, okay, yeah,
That's it. Yeah.
we're going to do 2 bedrooms?
Yeah, that was a Scrivener's error. We're only going to do 2-bedroom apartments.
Okay, so then staff's
Yeah,
write-up
sure.
will change to
One-
make this 2 bedrooms instead of 3 bedrooms.
Yeah, it says 3 on the plan, so we use 3. I didn't
Okay,
necessarily
Didn't
argue.
count them up. Neither did I. I apologize.
okay, that's all I have.
Good?
Yeah.
Okay, I've got a couple things. I like the idea of this type of unit on this property because it is somewhat fitting with the estates at Stewart. What I agree with Lee, it's extremely dense. So I guess my first question would be to staff. If this was an R3 with none of the extra, the ability to cut down from 30 to 50, no exceptions.
Mhm.
What could you put on here? How dense could you actually fit on this property?
10 units per acre is the comp plan for that zoning.
And then
land
in
use.
reality, with the actual buffers, could you get 10 units on this property?
Yes,
You could, okay.
Yes.
Could you get 15
without waivers, you're asking.
without waivers?
They would be pretty small units.
Yeah, so
But hold on a minute. So you're saying it's 10 units in acres. That really ups it to 13 or 14? Because we're talking about a site that's more than 1 acre,
Correct.
correct? So
Right,
just so you have
right.
that. Yeah.
So, okay, but again, we're going, again, it's extremely dense, and then you couple in the 2 waivers with the density. And I agree with Lee on the bioswale, the rear buffer. On the site plan, well, item number 4 on the RPUD, it says she'll include an impervious area of no more than 50% coverage. In the calculations, we have 34% for the building, 16% for the pavers, which is essentially it's 32%, but we reduce it to 16.
Right.
That gives you 50%. Then you've got the concrete dumpster, that's 1%, and the pavement, that's another 3%. So you're over the 50%. And so that doesn't match the development condition. You're 4% over based on the site plan, and that's still giving you the 50% credit for the pavers. So again, to me, it goes back to, it's just, the density it's very intense for this parcel.
Which would then mean, Ryan, if you dropped 1 unit, you would pick that up. Like 2 units, if you dropped off, right?
Probably, I don't know. You'd have to look at that and see how that worked out.
Yeah, I missed that though.
You mentioned the mail pickup spot, number 30 on the development condition. It mentions 2 EV spaces, and on the site plan, there's 4. So on the development condition, that would, I guess, move to 4 instead of 2. And then question about AC units. Are these, it doesn't look on the elevation that they're roof mounted. Are they pad mounted, and where are they going to be mounted?
I'm not sure we've gotten that far in the details.
Okay, my concern is this site's already so tight.
Mhm.
As soon as you get out the back door, you're in the bioswale. You're already sloping into the bioswale. So there's,
Go back door.
What's that? I'm sorry, not back door, rear of the building. There's no landing area for, so maybe you're gonna mount them on the,
Yeah,
I don't know.
Chairman, I've already conceded that we're going to take the bioswale out of the back and increase
Yeah.
the buffer. So it'll be a flat area no matter what.
Okay,
But then that adds more pavement.
It's a concrete three
Yeah,
by
yeah.
three slab, kind of thing.
yeah, but that's,
Yeah.
so those are my concerns. I am open for a motion.
Okay,
Go for it.
ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so I'll move approval with the following alterations, right? Number 1, mail delivery, showing the mail delivery out there by the dumpster. Number 2, fixing the site plan, showing a wall in the rear instead of the fence. Number 3, taking care and showing pedestrian connectivity to Canner Highway, or however that's going to be handled. Okay? Number 4, changing everything in the development conditions, the staff thing, all of it to 2 bedrooms and on the site plan. Number 5, restoring a landscape buffer behind the building, a 15-foot landscape buffer, not the bioswale. And number 6, complying with the development condition number 6 would be fixing the development condition so that it shows the 4 EV vehicles instead of 2. And number 7 is complying with condition number 4, which has to do with the 50% impervious coverage. That we are, so that calculation, so elaborating on that, that calculation needs to be done. We already know it's 54%. So however that gets handled, you got to get rid of the 4% and you've got to get rid of the pads for the air conditioning. Because my number 8 is to show the HVAC on the site plan.
I think we can do that because we're 2 parking spaces over already of code, so I can take those out.
Does that, you understand all those? So that's my
Okay.
condition motion.
Okay, a condition motion. Before we get a second, do we have any comments from the public? Okay. Sir, please come up and state your name and address.
So I'm Keith Muniz. I'm the president and CEO of the Arc of Martin County. So we operate the property just adjacent to this property. So I don't know if you need me to swear, I'm just making a comment. So we're okay with the property being developed. We do have some concerns, obviously, because of the nature of the facilities that we operate there and the nature of our tenants, which is the Department of Corrections. The sidewalks that we have on our side are all private sidewalks, so they can't be used by others. Not that we want to, but I don't think they would want children walking by the Department of Corrections anyway. So our only concerns are the traffic that comes in and out. We have, day programs there, after school programs that run and operate out of our programs there. We've been maintaining that access road for all these years. And so we're just concerned that all of a sudden it's going to be damaged through construction. We would hope that that all gets restored and repaired and that it's maintained because we're a nonprofit organization and we do the best we can to maintain that. And we've been doing pretty well, but we foresee a lot more damage, wear and tear occurring to this access road. And our vehicles, obviously, we want it to just be safe for our individuals. Parking, we just want to make sure that there's adequate parking. We have a critical parking issue in our parking lots now. So I'm not sure how many tenants would be living there, but we would hope that you just make sure that there's sufficient parking spaces so that sometimes you start to utilize other parking spaces that aren't necessarily assigned to those. Department of Corrections, I'm under contract with them to provide them a certain number of parking spaces, and I can't I can't allow those to be utilized, even if they're not being used, because it just goes in violation of that. So we just want to make sure that there is adequate parking and handicap parking. But that's pretty much it. Just wanted to make sure. We're glad to see that property is going to be developed and beautified, and hopefully there is some protected species that are on that property that we've seen before, and they get removed properly. I had a donor that wanted me to make sure I added that little comment. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Sir,
We have a
can you-
motion. Did you want to make it a,
I just wanted to ask staff a question and maybe
Please.
amend my motion. So in the development conditions, is there something about damage to that road? Whose road is that?
Well, that is a private easement. It's on our property. So
It's currently right now, Commissioner, it's a 30-foot, dedicated easement to all of the property owners in that region.
Okay,
So it's a shared roadway, basically, as part of the title work.
okay.
So it's not a county or city road. It's a private road that's dedicated for access, drainage, and utilities.
Yeah, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Is it controlled by an association?
Not that I'm aware of. It's only per the deeds.
All right, so you're going to deal with the individual property owners on repairs and.
That's my
yeah,
understanding.
Stuff, right?
So I guess I'm asking staff, does staff feel there needs to be a development condition that addresses any damage to the roadway?
we typically have that for sidewalks. We could put
I
that.
didn't
Yeah,
see
we
it
could-
in there.
Yeah, we typically have it for sidewalks only, but we could put something similar for
Because it's-
roadways. Yeah.
So I'd like to modify my motion to
Please.
add the roadway piece to the sidewalk piece in your development conditions. Who was my second?
okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Mike, second.
Thanks, Mike.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Board Member Mathers,
Yes.
Board Member Herbach,
Yes.
Vice Chair Roberts,
Yes.
Chair Strom.
No.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next item, number 3, annexation of city-owned property at Haney Creek, quasi judicial. An ordinance of the city of Stuart, Florida, annexing, allocating a future land use of conservation and allocating a zoning category of public for 4 city-owned properties adjacent to Haney Creek and Northwest Baker Road.
Thank you, Chair. This is an item which is looking at 4 county-owned properties at the moment. Let me just pull my slideshow up. And there's a bit of a background to this before we get into the meat of this. These 4 properties were subject to a grant by the Florida Communities Trust in the year 2000. And the agreement set out at that time that they should be converted to conservation. They remained as they are at the moment. So this proposal brings them forward and makes that condition to the grant whole. So let me just run through this application. So Ordinance 2452, 2020 is an ordinance of the city of Stuart, Florida, annexing, allocating a future land use of conservation and allocating a zoning category of public for 4 city-owned properties adjacent to Haney Creek and Northwest Baker Road, and which are subject to a Florida Communities Trust Grant Award Agreement and being more fully described in Exhibits A1, A2, A3, and A4 attached here too, providing directions to the city clerk, providing for repeal of ordinance in conflict, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date and for other purposes. So the properties in question are shown here, A, B, C, and D. They are all in city ownership, but they're at the moment lying in the county. So at the moment, they're in the county and have a future land use. These are all existing. A has a mobile home, B has mobile home, C has low density residential, and D has medium density residential. And the proposal of this annexation and change of zoning and future land use is to move all of those properties into conservation by annexing them into the city. So all the properties become in conservation. They're therefore protected from development in that area. So they really consolidate the use of the Haney Creek area for passive recreation. And many people use the trails in those at the moment. The existing zoning, again, we're looking at the existing county zoning. So A is R2, B is a combination split of R2 and RT, C is RS6 and R2, D is a split between RM8 and R5. Zoning for annexation and changing to the zoning would be to move all of these into public, which allows for the use as passive parks and exactly the use that they're being used for at the moment. And again, consolidates the requirement of the FCT grant. So really, that's where we are. It's to move these properties into the city, into the boundary of the city of Stuart, but also at the same time, move them into conservation and public to comply with the requirements of the Florida's Communities Trust grant. So I'm going to recommend that the local planning agency approve this and we move it to the commission for first hearing. I should say that this item was continued from the October 8th LPA.
Thanks, Kev.
Thank you.
Any comments from board members?
There's a hand raised, I think.
On the future land use map above, up front, I mean, on the board will work. In between, well, there you go. Well, just
Oh,
go
like
back
I said,
one more.
yeah.
No, one more. Okay, stay right there.
Yeah.
Between A, B, and D.
Yeah.
Aren't we creating an enclave there
There is a,
with the county owning the center? And
I think there's an acceptance that that is occurring. However, the county have raised no objection to that. We've notified the county of our intent. The city attorney did make that comment as part of this. We are actively seeking whether or not we could annex in the remaining parcels. The parcel in between B and C is owned by the county, and they are not willing to change that to conservation or to allow it to be annexed into the city.
that was my second question.
Yeah. So you can see from that, the county zoning, the future land use is low density, and the zoning is RS6. So we would encourage the county to change the future land use of that property to conservation.
The reason I say that, I thought that when you want to annex in, part of the requirements is that you don't create an enclave.
It's,
And I didn't know if the property owner affected by the enclave can waive that right.
well, this will be sent to the state and they will make that determination. Our recommendation is that really, as part of our requirement and obligation under the FCT grant, these properties do need to be changed to conservation. Conversations with the county.
But- The piece to the west of D is residential,
Yes,
and they would be in a county surrounded by city.
correct.
I was led to believe that that shouldn't happen. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Mike. Bill, anything?
If you, I mean, unfortunately, the city attorney is not here with us today. But that was a discussion at staff level, and we were aware of that So, if the LPA want to make that comment, we will take that to the city commission.
On that subject, is the property to the east of D, isn't that already in the city?
Yes.
Yes,
All right, so you're not, the enclave is already there, correct?
no, because C and B are in the county, so the connection is through C, B to the south.
Now, I understand that, but that parcel there adjacent to D, that one side is already city.
That's city, but
That
you could still,
parcel Is already a enclave.
No,
no,
because if you go
Because-
through, if you
You can
go
go-
from that
yeah.
through B, through C, and then to the right,
yeah,
it's all, that's all.
they're
No, no,
connected.
I agree. I'm just saying is that it's still city property D, correct?
D is city property, but it's in the
It's in the
county.
county.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
But the property next to it is city property.
That is city property. It's connected to the city. It does not create an enclave because the remainder of that property, even though some of it,
Right.
most of it is city owned, it's in the county, so it's connected to the county.
Right, I agree. I'm just
Yeah.
saying is, we already have basically city property adjoining a county piece. And then when you close it with the B to D, right, down tied to our property to the south, it's all interlinked, right?
It's, yeah, it's interlinked, but at the moment, as it stands, this does not form an enclave.
Right.
If it moves into the city, there is an argument, even though there's a county road connecting, that it could form an enclave.
Okay, but as far as right now, D is not an enclave.
No, at the moment, as it stands, remaining in the county, it's not an enclave.
Okay, so we're gonna keep it in the county, is what you're saying. Or we bring
Our
it-
recommendation is to comply with the FCT grant agreement and move these into conservation. And the only way we can achieve that is to bring them into the city and get a land use of conservation on those.
Right, that's why I say, so we're annexing it. But to me, that property is, that county property is already subject to, city property up next to the roadway there. So all we're doing is taking that section here now and annexing that section, right? And it's bound by city property on the east, right?
Yes,
And county property on the west, right?
yes.
So we're not creating we're just changing a old, what do you call it? Enclave. It's an existing enclave, however you do it. But when we put it here, it's coming into the city. We're just expanding the city's boundary west a little bit.
A and D aren't the issue though. I think what Mike's talking about is the B and C. The B and C are creating that enclave for the property south of
Yeah.
B.
And also to the
And
west.
for that one just next
of
to C,
C.
Correct,
Because
correct.
the city,
an island.
the city boundary actually, the city property actually runs to the north along that.
But
line
Kev, you
now.
said the city attorney has looked at this and
The city, and we did have a discussion and, I think there is a concern that it could be viewed as creating an enclave. We're recommending that we move ahead with it and put it forward to DEO and see what their opinion is, based on the fact that there is a requirement under a grant that's been standing out there since
right.
2000 that these should be in conservation.
The last I remember is we can cross the road.
You can cross a road, yes.
So it's not really illegal because we're merely crossing the road. Okay. I mean, it's got to go to the state,
Yeah.
They got to look at it.
Well, this will bring all these questions to the city attorney before it goes to city commission and get that opinion cleared up.
Okay. And we're just going to leave them alone?
I don't know.
Going to plant our trees on them?
That's it. That's all we're going to do.
Lee, do you have anything?
Yeah, I had a couple things. So why can't we just petition the county to change A, B, C, and D to conservation?
I asked. They're not, the response I get wasn't
The response
Um,
you get from who? From the county?
from the county, yes.
Have they sent you that in writing, that they will not change A, B, C, and D into conservation?
No, I don't have it in writing. No.
So here's what I think is, I think the problems are B and C. When I can understand how you can get D. If you just took out C, you would be creating a finger, which you're not allowed to do,
Right,
right?
right.
So you're not allowed to create a finger. So instead, what we've done is we've created an island. So I think your real problem is B and C.
As it stands, yes.
As it stands right there, if you did not take B and C in, if you only annexed in A and D, right? You have not created a finger, you have not created an island. So I'm okay with A and D being annexed in. I do think the county needs to be asked point blank. If you came to us now and said, here's a letter from the county that says they will not change A, B, C, and D into conservation, okay? Then I think your case is a lot stronger, why we should annex.
Yes.
And I think your case is a lot stronger going to the state and trying to explain, hey, this is the Haney Creek watershed, et cetera. We've got all these issues. We tried to make it conservation. They wouldn't let us make it conservation. So this is the only method by which we can get it into conservation. I can understand that. But I think you're really stretching it with B and C. And I'm not in favor of saying B and C should be annexed
Well,
without that.
let me take that advice and we won't move it to city commission. We will make an outreach to the county with that request.
And
then
you might
yeah.
want to request just B and C to be conservation. The things north of Baker Road, you
Yeah.
know, so, I mean, I don't have any problem with
Annexing A and D.
A and D
then,
being annexed,
yeah.
but just say that B and D, we just want to know the things that are in that corner between Baker Road and whatever that other road is. It's not the park, that isn't the Parkway, is it? Yes, that's Green River Parkway, right?
Yes,
So between, you know, in that corner,
Yeah.
between Green River Parkway and Baker Road, that we want, our desire is to make those to have those zoned as conservation.
and I think with that request, we should request that the county move their property as well into conservation. Yeah.
That, you know.
Everything
you
that's
know,
included in Haney Creek, I think
Sure.
should be in conservation.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I think if you came back with something that B and C, they're not interested. They don't want to make it conservation. They think they're going to develop that piece and and allow us to develop C at some point, which we wouldn't do.
No,
All we've
this-
got is something that's in
Right.
non-compliance at
Right.
that point.
Yeah.
But I mean, then I think your case, both to the state and both to everybody, to the public, is a lot stronger. But otherwise, I think, hey, an island and a finger, it's all the same.
Yeah.
You know, it's something that I don't really think we want to be in a position where we're sending it to the state thinking we're going to have to do a whole lot of explaining to try to do this. I think it's a lot better to send them stuff that's nice and clean. That's all I have.
So could I suggest in this interim that we remove parcels B and C from this request? We move forward with A and D at this moment and remove C and B with a request to the county for them to move those into conservation together with their property to the west.
Except I don't know if that's a good, even though these are public meetings, I don't think they listen to anything you say here. I don't think that may necessarily be a good strategic move. I think it's the less talk of annexation with the county, just based on what what they say at the joint meetings.
Yeah.
And those hard feelings that are coming out of there.
Yeah.
That if you're not looking, if you keep the C word under wraps and you just say the A word, the
A word,
annexation
yeah.
word, under wraps, and you
Yeah.
just say, hey, we're just looking at B and C to be conservation, that's what we really want to do. I would think that's a more
Well,
strategic.
they're okay with the annexation. And we do have a written response to say that they're okay with the annexation, and that includes all these 4 parcels. So they've looked at this, and the county have accepted that. And it was a discussion prior to this being put together, whether or not the county would be okay with that. So
And is that a staff
That's a
piece,
staff-
or
that's
is that,
a
yes, I
staff,
don't
yeah.
really even trust that.
Yeah.
Because I think when you talk to the commissioners have a very different feeling about annexation. And so rather than get into that.
Yeah.
Rather than to burn another bridge, I would think you might be better to just go for conservation to start with.
I don't have any bridges left.
Yeah, well, I don't think I do either. But anyway, that would be my
Okay.
suggestion.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
We do have 2 public comments on Zoom.
Okay, great. After we make a motion, we're going to hear from the public. Who's got a motion?
A motion to not move forward?
A motion to continue? Would that be the motion?
I think we could do that, couldn't we? If that's what you would want to
You
see.
want December or January?
Well, I think you should be on it.
Okay, so I move continuing this item to December. The 10th, is that right?
It sounds right.
December 10th. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's right. It's correct.
That's my motion.
Continuance?
Okay, we have a motion. Who is our first public speaker?
We have
County Commissioner.
Anybody want to speak?
Hello, am I getting through?
Hey, sir, we hear you.
Okay, this is Keith Kopp, and I live on Ginger Terrace in Jensen Beach. And 10 to 15 years ago, I had a group called the Haney Creek Greenway Group, which was heavily involved in the acquisition, the FCT funding, and so on for these parcels. Everybody will be a beneficiary of this. The motivation for this whole project was to improve the water quality of the St. Lucie River and the Indian River Lagoon that provide a filtration system. What you're proposing is a very good step forward. I agree with you. The county's been slow on reacting on this, and you're moving it along. So if you can get it done, please try to get it done. The question I have, and I don't recall, but I believe the county was a signatory to the contract on the FCT grant. I'd have to look
Yes.
at it to make sure, but if they were, they're legally bound because state tax money a lot of it was put into acquiring land and putting it into this project. So, and it contractually, as you stated, all of these parcels have to be put into conservation. So they have really little choice other than being in violation, I believe, of the FCT contract. But anyway, I'd like to commend you on what you're trying to do here. You're improving the water quality for all parties involved, and I believe doing the right thing. So thank you very much for pushing this through, and don't give up. I don't think there's that much objection, honestly, in the county. Years ago, I had discussions, new commissioners now, who knows? But there was a general understanding that we all live and die from a business standpoint on the quality of our waterways. And this is very instrumental in getting that done. There were a number of other groups that funded this thing too, St. Lucie River Initiatives, etc. So anyway, that's my comments, and thank you again very much for your efforts.
Thank you, sir, for your time and comments. Next.
we have Charmaine Davis.
Ma'am, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. I live in the island directly next to D. So how is that going to affect my sister and I who own property in that area? And we've been there for over 50 years.
Okay.
Yeah, so how is that going to affect us? That's our question. How is it going to affect us?
There is no effect on your property. Whatever's there at the moment is going to remain there, and this actually consolidates what's happening in that area by pushing it into conservation. So whatever is there at the moment remains as it is.
Okay, because we were concerned about somebody building all around us. So we're, okay, that sounds good. Thank you.
This
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, this protects that.
Thank you.
Okay, great. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Vice Chair Roberts,
Yes?
Board Member Mathers,
Yes.
Board Member Herbach,
Yes.
Chair Strom.
Yes. Right. Okay, last item, update community investment program, ordinance 2458-2020, an ordinance of the city commission amending the city's comprehensive plan to update the 5-year community investment program included within the capital improvement element of the comprehensive plan. Steve?
Thank you. Steve Mayor for the record. So ordinance 2458-2020 is a comprehensive plan text amendment, which is an update to the 5-year community investment program, and to include that into our capital improvements element. The reason for the CIE update or capital improvement element update is that accordance with section 163.3202, paragraph 2G of the Florida statutes, a 5-year schedule of improvements, also known as a capital improvement program or CIP, must be reviewed on an annual basis and updated via an amendment to the capital improvement element or CIE of our city's comprehensive plan. The CIE update demonstrates financial fiscal feasibility of the element's goals. This is accomplished by estimating cost of improvements, analysis of the city's fiscal capability to finance and construct those improvements, and adoption of those financial policies that guide our funding. There is a data analysis section, which includes facility level of service standards that are in our comprehensive plan, and they exist for potable water, sanitary sewer, solid waste, drainage, stormwater, recreation, and also transportation. Now, the reason for the CIE update also is in our own policy of our comprehensive plan, which is policy A2.6, which says that annually the city will prepare an updated 5-year schedule of capital improvements. This process shall include a review and analysis of city financial condition. Specifically, it will contain an updated projection of revenues, which takes into account any changes in potential revenue sources that have been anticipated to fund scheduled improvements. In addition, it will incorporate any new capital improvements needs that have unexpectedly risen. The analysis shall include discussion of any change of improvement prioritization and provide a rationale for the change. The schedule of improvements must distinguish between meeting the needs identified as needed to work towards the elimination of existing deficiencies and those improvements that are required to provide facilities for new development. So the CIP is actually something that has already been approved by the City Commission. This is our 2021 fiscal budget. It projects out to 5 years, all of our funding sources, and then the major, and what is considered major is over $25,000 worth of improvement or funding committed to a infrastructure project, and those are listed out, and then they are described out to how many years that might take, and then the funding that would be included. So this CIP is something that has already been adopted. It's not something that we are looking at in terms of asking for your approval for it. But what we would like to do is incorporate this new CIP into our CIE or our element in our comp plan. Now, financial feasibility is also something that's defined in our comprehensive plan, and it is an important or integral part of our CIE update. In policy A216, financial feasibility means that sufficient revenues are currently available or will be available from committed funding sources for the first 3 years, or will be available in committed or planned funding sources for years 4 and 5 of the 5-year schedule improvements. Committed sources of revenue shall include ad valorem, bonds, state, federal funds, tax revenues, impact fees, developer contributions, and I'd imagine grants are in there somewhere, but which are adequate to fund projected costs of capital improvements identified in the comprehensive plan necessary to ensure adopted LOS standards. So what are LOS standards? Our level of service standards are actually policy in our CIE and throughout our elements, and those are level of standards that you see in that table, and they regard sanitary sewer, solid waste facilities, drainage facilities, potable water, recreation, and transportation. Um, those are just technical. These are what we need to make sure we have the ability to serve these demands. So when we did analysis of the sanitary sewer, checking with our Public Works Department, various members of our Public Works Department, we have found that the sanitation sewer would account of 1.24 million gallons per day for residential and 1.1 million gallons per day for non-residential is the level of service. And planning staff has the approved budget, which demonstrates the service demands are met. And the budget summary will be included in the CIE update to show that we are meeting that level of service. For the solid waste, residential garbage collection level of service would be 54,425 pounds per day or 0.64 tons per household per year. And our residential garbage collection for 2020 was 0.91, above the level of service. Our residential recycling collection, although not necessarily a level of service in our comp plan, but may become, who knows, is 0.38 tons. And it just shows just how much of our garbage collection is being recycled versus going directly to incinerators. Our stormwater capacity, our level of service mentions that it must meet a certain standard. Our Public Works departments attest that new construction of surface water management systems and improvement of existing systems will be required to meet design standards that are outlined in land development regulations, using a minimum design storm of 10-year return frequency, 1 hour duration, and then improvements to the municipal drainage system will also be designed to convey the runoff from a 10-year, 1 hour storm event. So that our Public Works is committed to that attestation. Also, and this would be in a larger data analysis, are some other questions about our stormwater management plan. We have a citywide management plan that's being updated by CapTech as we speak. The potable water level of service accounts for 3.875 million gallons per day. That is our level of service that we have in our comp plan. Our water service connections equate to 4,331 connections with a capacity of 6 million gallons per day on our service demand. So we would be able to exceed that. And finally, with recreation, 45 acres, based on the our current population, we would require 45 acres, and our city has 10 parks totaling 127 acres. So we well meet that. And in our transportation element, it requires a level of service with some exceptions, mostly being on federal, where the LOS exceptions were made. Our city transportation network does meet our LOS. So staff does recommend approval to move the CIE update to the City Commission for first reading on November 23rd. Coincidentally, this is also a requirement of our our evaluation and appraisal report. It was a comment that was made by DEO that we should have this along with our transmittal.
Thanks, Steve.
Yes.
Any comments from the board?
I have a question. That 10-year, 1 hour duration, check on that. That sounds strange. That's not, normally it's a, 10-year, 1 day storm.
Okay.
If they say in a 10-year, 1 hour duration, I don't know if they're talking about DOT standards for, time of concentration. Just check with whoever's writing it and see.
Okay.
'Cause that may confuse somebody if they have to design.
It should be 10. You've heard it
Just
as
saying is typically we express it in a day, 24 hours.
Okay. Okay.
10-year, it's a 10-year, 3-day storm or a 1-day storm. Okay.
Right.
When you get into an hour duration, it sounds like a time of concentration that for the 10-year peak with an hour duration is so many inches of that 10-year, 24-hour storm.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But normally, if you're doing DOT or, roadways, you'll be doing that. So they may want it, but
Yeah.
it sounds odd. To me, it's one or the other.
Right.
High concentration.
I will
or-
check that with the level, it may be that the level of service is actually lower than what is typical that we ask for. I will check it though. Yeah.
It just, I wouldn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Okay.
check and see the language to, if somebody was really doing it,
Right.
what is the expectations of it, okay? That's all.
Yeah, I see that it's 10-year, 3-day duration. So it should say
10-year,
that.
3-day,
Yeah, 10-year, 3-day.
all right. Part of it was a 10-year, 1 hour.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I see what it should say. So that's
And a
noted.
10-year, 3-day. Yeah, I don't know. Just tell them to really check that because
Okay.
it seems to be a little scrambled. Okay,
Gotcha. Understand.
it's just language,
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Bill. Lee?
Does 127 acres include A, B, C, and D?
No.
No?
No. No, it does not.
Thanks, Lee. Mike, anything?
What?
Any comments? Okay,
One more real quick.
go ahead.
The sewer flows, 80 gallons per residential. Is that a combination residential / commercial input?
No, it's 80 gallons per capita for residential only. It's 1,100 for non-residential.
Okay, per square foot or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's off, but it's 80 gallons per residential unit, right? For the sewer?
Right. Well,
Okay.
right. For 80 gallons for sewer for residential, yes.
It seems a little low, but I'm not doing the numbers.
Yeah. Well, level of
Thank-
service standards probably are a little bit lower than,
I mean, they're getting these from someplace, right? To maintain a level of service, or we creating
Yeah.
them?
they've come from our comp plan, which dates back quite a ways. So,
Okay, that's why I say it may be,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah.
Just have the guys checking in case we need more money to upgrade.
Right.
Thanks, Bill. Do we have a motion?
I move approval with whatever correction you need to make to the 10-year day thing.
They're gonna check that.
All right, we have a motion. Any public comments on Zoom? No? Okay, motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Mike beat Bill barely. Motion a second. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice Chair Roberts,
Yes.
Member Herbach,
Yes.
Board Member Mathers,
Yes.
Chair Strom.
Yes. Great. Just a reminder, next meeting is Lee's last meeting and it's near our, don't we have a Christmas party for all boards coming up in December?
So, yeah, I had a question about that. So there's the lunch that's happening on December 3rd, but that isn't our Christmas party, is it?
What?
I think
You
that's a
want two.
question for the city manager. I think
Wow.
he was hoping to combine everything there.
Really?
I think we should save taxpayer dollars and just do the one. Don't you think?
Is he going to have cookies there?
Jordan, no.
There will be a form of dessert.
Okay, good,
They're
thanks.
having that appreciation party or whatever at the Flagler Center. And how's that gonna work? I mean, it's gonna be kind of crowded, right? I mean,
No, we're gonna be 6 feet
you
apart.
know about that? You got the email, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we got assigned
that's-
times to go. My time to go is 3 a.m. to 3:15 a.m. What time did you get?
What's that? Mine? I don't know. Well, I think